the UK government's position on this has been clear and long-standing and hasn't changed. Of course, we don't tolerate persecution where it...
Hello and welcome to News Epicenter with me, Ayushman Singh Jamwal. A storm has erupted across the country over the BBC documentary on the 2002 Gujarat riots, ladies and gentlemen. Now, after stone pelting at JNU, a high-voltage drama erupted at Jamia Millia Islamia University over the screening of the docu-series. Delhi police detained student activists of the SFI after the Jamia administration issued a notice asking students to refrain from screening the documentary. The drama is spreading to other campuses around the country as well, as the centre has blocked the screenings. Now, this raises two pertinent questions. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has beaten the 2002 bogey time and again, given his elevation to the post of Prime Minister through democratic elections and being the biggest political force in the country. So why is the government afraid of this documentary? Number one. But even if it is propaganda, the Prime Minister has beaten it in the past. However, at the same time, you can watch this documentary on your phone, on your laptop, in your homes as well. Is creating a campus event around this documentary an indication of vested interest in pushing an anti-Modi narrative? Is anti-Modi politics fueling this disruption once again on India's campuses? The reason we ask that question is because once you see the documentary like I have, it is high on conjecture and charges of one side and low on facts. We explore all these aspects on News Epicenter today.
Protests, sloganeering and detentions outside Delhi's Jamia Millia Islamia University. The trigger was a plan to see the controversial BBC documentary on Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Before the film could be screened, police in riot gear reached the gates of the college. And dozens of students, including members of the Students' Federation of India, were hauled away.
इसमें एक बार फिर से कुछ कार्यकर्ताओं को हिरासत में लिया गया है। एक के बाद एक यहाँ पर डिटेंशन है वो लगातार यहाँ पर जारी है दिल्ली पुलिस की तरफ से, और एक के बाद एक यहाँ पर जो कार्यकर्ता प्रदर्शन करने पहुंच रहे हैं उनको हिरासत में लेकर यहाँ से लेकर जाया जा रहा है.
Jamia authorities said they will not allow any unauthorized gatherings on campus. Only students appearing for examinations will be allowed inside. But even within that, confusion reigned.
पर आप गार्ड साहब से पूछेंगे रीजन क्या हमें एंट्री नहीं देने का? अगर ऐसा कुछ वैल्यू है तो वो ऑफिशियल नोटिस क्यों नहीं आया हमारा?
saying that we have ordered to stop a student from entering the college. That's it.
अच्छा, आप बस एंट्री लेना चाहते हैं?
There is no official notice, no written order, nothing.
A similar screening organized by some students at the Jawaharlal Nehru University was disrupted on Tuesday. Electricity and internet were turned off in the Students' Union office, and students ended up watching the film on their phones. But later at night, JNU students marched towards the police station, claiming stone pelting by members of the ABVP. Some colleges in Kerala have also gone ahead with the screening of the documentary, despite the centre blocking tweets and videos on it. While the opposition has questioned the centre's move, Anil Antony, son of Congress veteran A.K. Antony, quit the party, alleging intolerant calls to retract a tweet in which he had defied Congress's stand and slammed the BBC documentary.
I would say that it is against everything Mr. Rahul Gandhi actually stands for. Where, let's say, I made this tweet and then in the next 3, 4, 5 hours, I have pressure from a lot of places saying that I should either retract my tweet or I should, let's say, give another explanation countering it. I said I'm not going to do it because end of the day I haven't said anything which is against the policy of the party in any manner.
The fact of the matter is that the highest court of the land has exonerated the Prime Minister over the 2002 Gujarat riots. So is there a vested interest behind the dissent?
Now, after seeing this documentary, I had a couple of questions for the BBC, given the tone and tenor of this film. Now, why has the Modi government been accused of endorsing genocide? That is one question. Why does the documentary claim Muslims have been targeted under Prime Minister Modi, that there have been targeted attacks against Muslims? In fact, Arundhati Roy in this documentary says that the campaign is to disenfranchise the Muslims of India. Why were there no interviews of the Godhra train attack victims? Because their plight tends to be forgotten in the entire narrative. Why does the documentary claim that Prime Minister Modi has not spoken against hatred in the past? Why does it claim that the RSS wants Hindu supremacy in India And why were the Supreme Court observations on the charges against Prime Minister Modi not shown? And also, why were the conflicting reports behind the charges not disclosed in this documentary? Because what you are learning is only one side of the entire narrative, which has been politically beaten by Prime Minister Modi. You can see multiple elections where he is the political brand that the BJP banks on. So the 2002 bogey has been beaten by the Prime Minister in the past, but this latest push coming in from the BBC and the drama that we're seeing on campuses across the country, is this just politics in the garb of dissent? Now let's get our guests on that point. I'm joined by Arun Anand, consulting editor of First Post, Yogesh Jindal, Congress leader, and Ashok Sajanhar, former diplomat and signatory against the documentary, also Lord Rami Ranger, member of the House of Lords. Good evening, gentlemen, and thank you for joining us on CNN News 18. I will come to you first, Lokesh. This documentary has caused rumblings within your own party, where the son of a senior Congress leader has now spoken out against the party, given the tenets of this documentary. Have you seen this documentary, and where do you stand on it?
Yes, I have seen the documentary, and along with the documentary, I have gone through the NHRC report, as well as I have been I've been following the 2002 riots and the developments that happened after that. Ayushman, I want to make certain points clear.
Yeah.
When we talk about describing a particular event, then simply restricting it to the legal and judicial aspect is not fair. For example, in 1946, the Great Calcutta killing that occurred, where we have Hussain Sohrawardi, who was the chief minister of Bengal. And at that point of time, he is held responsible. He's called the butcher of Bengal. The simple reason being that it was when he was the chief minister, Hindus were killed. And it was the sole responsibility as the chief minister of that state so as to protect the lives of the Hindus. So the sung everywhere in India, he is called the butcher of Bengal. Now, when you're talking about Gujarat, in fact, right now I'm having the National Human Rights Commission report with me. It clearly states that right from February, the entire month of February, there were tensions brewing because of the statements that were being released by the Kar Sevaks, as well as the Prime Minister, then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and the conditions that were prevailing in Gujarat. When the train moved in and the train was carrying the Kar Sevaks, that particular ill-fated place where the bogie burnt, just near to it, just hardly few minutes away, there was the RPF, Railway Protection Force station was there. The fire brigades were there. So there could have been a lot of arrangements that could have been made by the state. Now, state policy is supposed to be preemptive to bring about reduction in hostilities, what can happen. Now, it cannot be always reactive. Henceforth, we see Gujarat, which was always on an explosive environment. It was let loose, and the police, the responsibility of the state to impose law and order to protect the lives of citizens, it failed to do that. Now, whether legally we are able to...
I understand where you're going with this. And while the Supreme Court in its judgment also pointed out that failure to act does not mean conspiracy. That's what the Supreme Court said. Failure to act, lapses in the law and order system does not mean conspiracy. You have seen the documentary, as you have said. Don't you think that despite what the Supreme Court has said, the narrative is to say that Prime Minister Modi was at the helm of a conspiracy which has been dismissed by the highest court of this country?
The courts of the country, they rely upon evidences, finding inferences, and there are a lot of procedural aspects involved in it. So I would never counter the judgment by the Honorable Supreme Court. It's the highest court of law. I won't defy it. What I would say over here is, if there is an alternate aspect that is brought to the notice of the public, why is the government so skeptical about it? I mean, if the government is...
But what backs the alternative? See, my perspective, when I was watching this, I was waiting for this to go beyond conjecture. Ashok Sajanhar, please come in on this. I was waiting for something to happen in this documentary beyond the politicization of the 2002 riots. I was waiting for someone to make some concrete point that was backed by the court, some concrete fact that laid out the entire conspiracy charge. I saw none of it. At the beginning of this documentary, there is a voiceover of a journalist saying calls for genocide against Muslims are on the rise. Direct calls are being made to make India a Hindu nation. Prime Minister Modi has not spoken against hate. These are the first words of the documentary. Can this be seen as anything beyond propaganda?
No, thank you very much, Ayushman. I don't think it can be seen anything beyond propaganda, as you said yourself, that, it comes with a biased agenda. It seems to have, the makers of this, the producers of this documentary, appear to have made up their mind as to where they are going. All the things that are being mentioned just now, it is not that they are being mentioned here for the first time. 20 years, there has been such a rigorous examination and investigation by all and sundry. It's not only, meaning we say, of course, the Supreme Court, but whether it is the press, whether it is the media, whether it is the academia, each and every one of them has gone through, with a huge magnifying glasses as to what happened, what did not happen. With the 2020 hindsight, you might say, this was not done, this could have been done. I think if this 2020 hindsight was available to people, there would be no wars, there would be no killing, there would be no death, there would be no destruction. So, you can't do that as to why this was not done and it should have been clear. That you can say about so many things around the world. I think the first is in terms of the content, it is nothing at all new to offer. And secondly, I think, as you have mentioned yourself, Ayushman, right at the beginning, it is in terms of the timing. Why is it being, if it has nothing new to offer, no new facts, no new evidence, the only thing it has is a rehash of the Foreign Office report, British Foreign Office report, which by some miracle at this time seems to have come into the possession of the BBC. And that is the only additional evidence. But, the last point here I would like to make is, it is very unfortunate, when the highest court of the land has pronounced and has said that, there have been many people who've been trying to put, fake evidence, fraudulent evidence, which does not stand to the testimony in the court, that there are very many people here. I will not include the students or even the political leaders who say that, now the truth is coming out. Meaning, what is this? Is the word of the BBC, which has sort of, just done a very perfunctory sort of treatment of this whole issue, and you take that word to be even higher placed than the law of the land, and after the 452-page judgment.
Yeah, and Mr. Sajana, that is the crux of the entire politics behind it. Arun Anand, I wanted to get this view from you as well. I was hoping for the BBC is known for balance. I've seen so many great BBC documentaries which, when it comes to the situation in Ireland, which shows both sides of the entire turmoil which took place during the rise of the IRA, and so many other documentaries where there is balance. The BBC is known for this balance. This documentary, and once again, I reiterate this point, when they were talking about 2002, they had multiple testimonies of people who were killed in the violence in the heart of Ahmedabad and in other parts of Gujarat. I was waiting for some testimonies of the victims, of the families of the victims of the Godhra train fire, where Hindu pilgrims were burnt alive. Not even a single one, as if they were not even part of the carnage which took place in 2002.
See, you have to understand, the timing of the documentary. When, the election year is almost like, the elections are rolling out. We have got elections to almost 10 states, and then the Bhagalpur 2024 polls has, the preparations have begun. And so one is the timing of the documentary. That is very significant, that why at this particular time this documentary has come. So that, clears a lot of questions. Second is that, as you were mentioning, BBC has actually been always accused of, and probably rightly accused of, having a very leftist bias. There was a report in 2013 by a UK-based think tank called Centre for Policy Studies. The report is titled Bias at the Beeb. And it clearly says three things. The conclusion is, one, that it is dominated, BBC is dominated by the radical left. They peddle the leftist propaganda and the leftist think tanks and the leftist, ideologues as independent commentators, as you have seen in this documentary that they have taken version of Arundhati Roy, people like Arundhati Roy.
Yeah.
And the third thing they have said is that it's a facade basically of this thing, and it's a highly biased kind of reporting they do. Similarly, the Hutton report after the Iraq war also, came out very scathingly against the way basically BBC's editorial policies are controlled, and there is no regulatory mechanism. In fact, the BBC chairman had to step down after that. So one is that BBC is not that balanced as it looks probably. I think we need to go deeper into it. One more point I want to bring out, as I was mentioning, that you see the timing, and then why there are certain particular campuses like JNU and Jamia where you have a nexus of radical left and the radical Islamists. Whatever, whether it is CA, whether it is Bharat Tere Tutte Honge, whether any other anti-India, move or agitation. So all these things happen in, Jamia and JNU and certain other campuses, because these are some of the last bastions left where, the left and the radical Islamists still have a significant presence.
Absolutely.
So you have to see all this as a big picture. This is all basically, to defame BJP, Narendra Modi, and as well as India, because the move is also coming just a few days before the budget. It's a larger, big picture you have to look at.
Absolutely. And Arun, at the same time, any kind of agitation lacking any facts behind it, that is the definition of mobilization via propaganda. Lord Rami Ranger, I want to get your perspective on this. Just few lines which, which I was jotting down while I was watching this documentary. RSS seeks to establish the superiority of Hindus above all other races in India. RSS grew at a time when fascism grew in Europe, taking the ideology of Hitler and Mussolini. For the RSS, the Muslim is the enemy. I mean, I don't think an institution like the BBC, it kind of goes against their entire image of balance and facts when they start reporting on such, when they start giving such conjecture about an organization, about an Indian organization like this.
Ashman, first of all, you have to understand, if I am to create a documentary against Mr. Modi, what will I do? This documentary was designed to insult our Prime Minister, insult India's democracy, rule of law, and India's constitution, where equality for all is enshrined in the constitution. So the main purpose was not to celebrate the success of India, not to celebrate the G20 presidency of India, or to have an Indian origin Prime Minister, or in the number 10, or to celebrate the UK-India FTA agreement, which is on the card now. And it was not. It was designed to show the persecution of Muslims. The rule of law is not there, and it's total joke. This is why they selected people who would speak against Prime Arundhati Roy. If I were the Prime Minister, I remove her, from India completely. She has done nothing to enhance the image of India in the wider arena. I think she's probably get paid across the border or whatever. So number two, if you want to damage India, you don't need a nuclear bomb. You just need a Hindu-Muslim riots in major city to destroy the credibility of India. So it is a very sinister, well-timed documentary to damage India when India is rising in the international arena. So therefore, divide and rule policy, they have refueled the hatred between Hindus and Muslims in England also. We saw the riots only a few months back in Leicester and Birmingham. If any sane, intelligent journalist would never have opened the old wound. In a very big scheme of things, India is not a small country. It's a very big country with very big population, with very big diversity. One or two incidents will happen. Nothing is perfect. No country is perfect. It happens in America. It happens black and white in America. It happens in United Kingdom.
I remember the 2011 riots in London, Lord Rami Ranger, when there was widespread looting across the satellite towns of London.
What I'm saying is, this is ill-timed documentary, not ill-timed, a well-timed documentary to damage the international standing of India. I think we should just ignore it Don't make any scene. And I appeal to my Muslim and Hindu leaders. India belongs to you. The equality for all is enshrined in the Indian Constitution. In India, diversity is not only accepted, respected, but also protected. There are laws to protect. Modi ji has done more for the minorities. Muslim women are now empowered. The triple talaq
Ashok
was removed.
Sajjanar, I want to absolutely, Lord Ranger. Ashok Sajjanar, I want to take this point to you. I was trying to find something concrete in this documentary, and I found this kind of quote from the documentary very telling. As per the voiceover in the documentary, Modi contacted the police and told them not to intervene. We found, this is the British panel that was set up to investigate Godhra. We found conflicting reports on his role, but we did feel it was clear there was a culture of impunity that directly came from Modi. I'll say it again. We found conflicting reports on his role, but we did feel it was clear there was a culture of impunity that directly came from Modi. So you based your entire narrative around a conjecture to a great extent. And when our reporters were talking to the students at these universities, we consistently tried to ask them the question, do you know what the Supreme Court said about the 2002 riots? None of them knew. No one knew what the Supreme Court had said. No one knew anything about the clean sheets. So this entire row is only being fueled by propaganda, which has the legitimacy of the BBC now.
No, absolutely, Ayushman. This is, I think, the danger that the government has seen. That, there are many people who say that taking a move like this, taking a measure like this will significantly reduce the, bring down the image, bring down the profile, bring down the respect of India in the world. And India needs all that soft power when it is sort of, having such a large presence on the global stage, on the global arena, being the chair of the G20, being the chair of SCO, and, so many other having dealt so effectively with COVID-19 and Russia-Ukraine conflict, etc., etc. But my point there would be that the basic responsibility of the government is to ensure law and order, to ensure that there is no communal violence, that there is no conflict that takes place in the country. And this documentary definitely has the potential that, if it is unleashed like this without any restrictions, then it could result in such, conflict in the country in different pockets. And even one or two instances, I will not go to the extent of saying, as some of them have charged, that, India will not be destabilized because India is we are a very self-assured country. We are a very confident country. But, it will be a blot on the image of the country if there are communal riots and some people are killed. And some people who know the truth, Ayushman, they are going to use this to foment violence, to foment tension and problems so that for their own, advancing their own political agenda, advancing their own political ends. And we have seen some statements coming out. So I think the government has, in its wisdom, acted correctly. And this needs to be contained. Maybe for first few days in campuses, there might be some such, problems. But hopefully going forward, things will settle down.
Right. Lokesh, I want to give you the final word. I want to get your reaction to this statement from the documentary, and you've seen it. You must have heard of it. This is a regime aimed to disenfranchise the Muslims and make India a Hindu nation where the Hindu is supreme. First, I want your reaction to this statement. And secondly, do you think that these students who are protesting in these universities, they should educate themselves on what the Supreme Court has actually said about the charges against the Prime Minister?
Just before I answer these two questions, I would like to make a point here that one of the panelists, he said that the government, it's its responsibility to maintain law and order. And this particular documentary has certain seeds that can create unrest. In that case, the government should have also acted for the Kashmir files, because we see that the Supreme Court in 2017 itself had dismissed the curative petition so as to open the genocide case, and it is still being legally contested. Even the Kashmir files as a movie was made demonizing a particular community.
Are you conflating a documentary with a Bollywood movie?
That's what the point is.
You're conflating a documentary with a Bollywood movie.
Just a minute. when the government gives holidays to the government employees, then the government goes off the record and says that this is the correct narrative of history. When the government gives tax soaps to the movie, when political leaders
so tax soaps also go to Akshay Kumar and Amir Khan movies. What point are you trying to make?
Where they are not allowed to promote a commercial movie, they are still promoting a commercial movie. Now, this
Congress governments have given tax soaps to so many movies. What are you talking about?
In 2004, Congress had banned Final Solution, movie that was based upon Godhra riots, because that movie could have brought about some form of communal unrest in the country. So Congress at that point of time did not take mileage out of or try to extract some form of political mileage out of it. So if the government wants to make sure that the media content has to be neutral, it should not bring about any form of communal unrest, then it should not resort to double standards. Secondly, with respect to what's happening nowadays in the universities and all, politicization of education is something that this particular government is responsible for. We have seen that right from 2014, Jawaharlal Nehru University and other universities are being targeted time and again over trivial issues, and politicization of education is taking place. There is a revision of history, there is a revision. In fact, all aspects of education are being politicized.
Then tell me, what is the history of 2002 that is not being taught, that is not known?
See, when you are talking about history, historiography, it all depends upon what facts are considered and how they are.
So you're yourself deciding that we can look at these facts, we can look at those facts.
An objective form of education which allows every individual to seek both sides. A multi-perspective is put forward, and a person has his own critical
both
analysis.
Sides. I completely agree. Both sides. Are you telling me this documentary is giving you both sides?
Well, if this documentary gives one side, the other facts that is being presented by the government is also available to the people.
No, I'm talking about you're watching a documentary, you're getting just one side. What do you mean that the government has to, the onus is on the government to give the other side? Why should the government react to a damn documentary? The documentary should operate on fairness. You're telling me you gave testimonies for for family members who were killed in the violence. Not one family member of those who were burnt in the Godhra train, their interviews have been taken. Why?
We have just seen how Bilkis Bano's rape.
Yeah, there you go. Again, we're talking about this documentary.
When they were released,
clearly you want to make the political points.
Not once.
I think we leave it at that. You just want to make those political points. Arun Anand, Lokesh Jindal, Ashok Sajjanat, Lord Rami Ranger, thank you for joining us on this discussion. This war of words of this documentary will continue to escalate, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting